Sukuya Nade. Welcome to Vodcast Episode 2. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about culture and language. These things are intertwined in many ways. In reference to receiving the lyrics from the Repcom soundtrack while Travis was writing the Republic Commando books, she said, "I jumped on them right away. Language and culture are indivisible. If I wanted to understand the characters, I needed to know their language, so I built it." The way you think is also connected. In linguistics, there is something called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which derives that the language you speak affects the way you think, and vice versa. You grow up speaking a native language that will shape the way your mind looks at the world. If someone grows up in a language without grammatical number, then they would see everything as a collective noun. For example, in English we see grass as a collective noun, but tree as a numbered noun. So when we say grass, we mean all of the grass, or even grass as a concept. But when we say tree, we mean a singular tree. If you spoke a language without number, when you say tree, you mean the whole group of trees, or the concept of tree, just like when we refer to grass. Another example would be if you speak a native language without a word for a certain color. While you still see the color, you think about it differently. Before there was an English word for orange, the color was referred to as red, which is why we still say red in reference to red hair. This is how the language you speak affects the way you think, and Travis understood this when creating the language. As she puts it, "I was surprised how fast it happened and how organic it became right away. I didn't make up words out of the blue, bar 2 or 3 specific ones. They evolved. Knowing the Mandalorians in my head told me what I needed to know about how they saw the world, and that shaped the language, just as it does in the real world. I'm not an academic linguist, just someone who's learned a lot of languages over the years, and promptly forgot most of them. As long as I stuck to thinking, if I'm a Mando, what do I think when I look at this object, or when I do this action?" And it just flowed. This is why Mandalorians don't have a word for hero, because every Mando is expected to act like a hero by default. They don't even think about what it means to be a hero, only what it means to be a Mandalorian. So, to really learn to speak Mando'a, you have to think like a Mandalorian, not like an English speaker. If you take a look at the dictionary, you'll see that a lot of given definitions in English don't exactly match the Mando'a. So when you use these words exactly as in English as they are given in the dictionary, it's a little bit disingenuous to the word's actual meaning. Let me make a hypothetical situation to explain. Someone opens a door for you and says, "I opened the door." In English you can respond, "I know," because you just saw them do it. If you translate this to Mando'a, many people will just say, "Ni kartaili," and while technically you would be understood, it feels off because the word kartailir doesn't literally mean to know. It's a compound word from kar, the root for heart or the core of something, and tailir, which means to hold. So the meaning is really to hold in the heart. This means you know something fully, in and out, not simply that you can see another person doing something. A better response in Mando'a might be something like "ni hataili," which means "I see." But again, it doesn't just mean see like in English. It literally means to hold in vision, which ultimately has the same usage, but through different means. It's not literally exactly the same as the English definition. The way kartaylir should be used is more like this. If you say, I know war, you aren't simply saying that you're aware that war exists, but that you know it inside and out, that you are intimately aware of the details of war. This would be in a more appropriate use behind the meaning of kartaylir. This is why it's extremely important to think about the real meanings behind the words and how a Mando would see the world. Stop thinking in English and start thinking in Mando'a. Now, of course, it isn't as easy as it sounds. When learning a new language, thinking in it is usually the last step, because most people just translate from their native language inside their head until they are more familiar with the language. But because Mando'a is so heavily dependent on context, especially cultural context, it's extremely important that you learn to think in it as soon as possible, or at least understand the mindset of a Mandalorian when translating to Mando'a. The best way to do this is to learn about the culture. Read Travis's books. Read articles about Mandos, or, join groups of people who understand the culture. I have posted some culture resources in the classroom if you'd like to check it out. Also, consider joining the OUBot Discord, as there are experts there who will be able to answer culture and lore questions probably better than I, as well as more language experts who can help with your Mando'a too. Well, that is all I have for you today. I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can down below when I get the chance. Returshimi.